ईश्वर को याद करके की जाती है। हम शुरुआत कर रहे हैं वेदोच्चारण से। हमारे वेद हजारों साल पहले उजागर हुए थे, लेकिन आज भी वे उतने ही महत्वपूर्ण हैं और हमारी इंटेंजिबल कल्चरल हेरिटेज का हिस्सा हैं। आज प्रस्तुत है गणेश कवचम। इसके अंतर्गत भगवान श्री गणेश से विनती की जाती है कि समस्त संसार की वो रक्षा करें और चारों ओर शांति हो। इसकी रचना देवर्षि नारद जी ने नारद पुराण में की है। गणेश कवचम प्रस्तुत कर रहे हैं पंडित मुनिराज पाठक, श्री उमाकांत तिवारी और श्री पुष्पराज द्विवेदी। की वो रक्षा करें और चारों ओर शांति हो। इसकी रचना देवर्षि नारद जी
श्री गणेशाय नमः। गौर्युवाच एषोति चपलो दैत्यान् बाल्येऽपि नाशयत्यहो। अग्रे किं कर्म कर्तेति न जाने मुनिसत्तमा। दैत्यानानाविधा दुष्टा साधु देवद्रुवः खरा। अतोऽस्य कंठे किंचित् त्वं रक्षार्थं बद्धुमर्हसि। मुनिरुवाच ध्यायेत् सिंहगतं विनायकममुं। दिग्बाहुमाद्यं युगे त्रेतायां तु मयूरवाहनममुं। षड्बाहुकं सिद्धिदं द्वापारे तु गजाननं युगभुजं। रक्तांगरागं विभुं तुर्ये तु द्विभुजं सितांगरुचिरं। सर्वार्थदं सर्वदा विनायकः शिखां पातु परमात्मा परात्परः। अतिसुन्दरकायस्तु मस्तकं सुमहोत्कटः। ललाटं कश्यपः पातु भ्रूयुगं तु महोदरः। नयने भालचन्द्रस्तु गजास्य स्त्वोष्ठपल्लवौ। जिह्वां पातु गडाक्रीडश् चिबुकं गिरिजासुतः। पादं विनायकः पातु दन्तान् रक्षतु दुर्मुखः। श्रवणौ पाशपाणिस्तु नासिकां चिन्तितार्हदः। गणेशस्तु मुखं कण्ठं पातु देवो गणञ्जयः। बाहौ पातु गजस्कन्धः स्तनौ विघ्नविनाशनः हृदयं गणगणनाथस्तु हेरम्बोजठरं महान् धराधरः पातु पार्श्वौ पृष्ठं विघ्नहरः शुभः लिङ्गं गुह्यं सदा पातु वक्रतुण्डो महाबलः गणाक्रीडो जानुजङ्घे ऊरो मङ्गलमूर्तिमान् एकदन्तो महाबुद्धिः पादौ गुल्फौ सदावतु क्षिप्रप्रसादनो बाहु पाणि आशाप्रपूरकः अङ्गुलीश्च नखान् पातु पद्महस्तोरिनाशनः सर्वाङ्गानि मयूरेषु विश्वव्यापी सदावतु अनुत्तमयत्स्थानम् धूम्रकेतुः सदावतु आमोदस्त्वग्रतः पातु प्रमोदः पृष्ठतोऽवतु प्राच्यां रक्षतु बुद्धीश आग्नेयां सिद्धिदायकः दक्षिणस्यामुमा पुत्रो नैऋत्यां तु गणेश्वरः प्रतीच्यां विघ्नहर्ताव्यात् द्वायव्या गजकर्णकः कौबेर्यां निधिपः पाया देशान्यामीशनन्दनः दिवो व्यादेलनन्दस्तु रात्रौ सन्ध्यासु विघ्नहित् राक्षसासुरवेताल ग्रहभूतपिशाचतः पाशाङ्कुशधरः पातु रजः सत्त्वतमः स्मृति ज्ञानं धर्मं च लक्ष्मीं च लज्जां कीर्तिं तथा कुलं वपुर्धनं च धान्यं च गृहदारान् सुतान् सखीन् सर्वायुधधरः पौत्रान् मयूरेशो वतात् सदा कपिलो जाविकं पातु गदाश्वान् विकटोऽवतु भूर्जपत्रे लिखित्वेदम् यः कण्ठे धारयेत् सुधि नायं जायते तस्य यक्षरक्षः पिशाचतः त्रिसन्ध्यं जपते यस्तु वज्रसारतनुर्भवेत् यात्राकाले पठेद्यस्तु निर्विघ्नेन फलं लभेत् युद्धकाले पठेद्यस्तु विजयं चानुयात् ध्रुवम् मारणोच्चाटनाकर्ष स्तम्भमोहनकर्मणि सप्तवारं जपेदेत दिनानामेकविंशतिं तत्तत्फलम् अवाप्नोति साधको नात्र संशयः 21वारं च पठेत्तावद्दिनानि यः कारागृहगतं सद्यो राज्ञा वध्यं च मोचयेत् राजदर्शनवेलायां पठेदेतत्त्रिवारतः स राजानं वशं नीत्वा प्रकृतिश्च सभां जयेत् इदं गणेशकवचं कश्यपेन समीरितं मुद्गलाय च तेनाय माण्डव्याय महर्षये मह्यं सप्राह कृपया कवचं सर्वसिद्धिदं न देयं भक्तिहीनाय देयं श्रद्धावते शुभम् अनेनाय कृता रक्षा नाधास्य भवेत् क्वचित् राक्षसासुरवैताल दैत्यदानवसम्भवा राक्षसासुरवेताल दैत्यदानवसम्भवा राक्षसासुरवेताल दैत्यदानवसम्भवा इति श्रीगणेशपुराणे उत्तरखण्डे गणेशकवचं सम्पूर्णम्।
Ganesh Kavacham was presented by Pandit Muniraj Pathak, Shri Umakant Tiwari, Shri Pushparaj Dhuvedi. In just a short while from now, in the segment Lectures and Film Screenings, we will have a presentation on Crafts Encyclopedia, followed by a presentation on Toys of India and digital literacy. But we take a short break to change our setup. Please bear with us. Namaskar and welcome to the segment Lectures and Film Screenings of Kaleidoscope, a festival of the intangible cultural heritage of India, presented by Sangeet Natak Academy. We present a talk on the Crafts Encyclopedia. The Crafts Revival Trust, CRT, was set up in 1999 and is mandated on the principle that access to knowledge and its dissemination forms the vital core of safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. Asia Inch Encyclopedia and Archive was started almost 2 decades ago and is the widest, most in-depth encyclopedia of the ICH of traditional arts, crafts, and textiles of India and 7 other countries across the South Asian region. Ms. Ritu Sethi is the chairperson of the Craft Revival Trust and the managing editor of Asia Inch, the principal online encyclopedia on the intangible cultural heritage of traditional arts, crafts, textiles, and its practitioners in South Asia. She serves on the advisory board as a member of the ICH Committee, Ministry of Culture, besides being a member of policy groups constituted by the Government of India on intangible cultural heritage, handloom, and crafts. She is also on the advisory board of UNESCO CAT 2 centers in both Japan and China, and on the INTAC Heritage Craft and Community Division, besides several other institutions. We request Ms. Ritu Sethi to present a talk on Crafts Encyclopedia.
Friends, as we emerge, I hope, from this great pause of COVID-19, we are really entering a new reality that slowly unfolds a discovering of what we have lost. So I must say a huge thanks to Sangeet Natak Academy for this very timely seminar and kaleidoscope that is going over 7 days. Just writing my paper gave me time for thought and stock-taking and reflection and looking at life and work anew. So we are really fortunate that thanks to SNA we can meet again after a period of almost 2 years to see what it is we can do in our own way to safeguard and renew this remarkable syncretic living culture of India. Ever since our independence in 1947, we in India have paid great attention to our living heritage. Nothing underlines it more than where we meet today, in this wonderful oasis that is dedicated to the performing and theatrical arts and is the nodal body for intangible cultural heritage. Further, the 1 kilometer surrounds of this area is equally dedicated to different aspects of culture and heritage. And they are not alone. As in Delhi, and indeed across India, institutions, organizations, communities, and individuals have been working tirelessly over the decades towards safeguarding living traditions and practices. However, over the decades, living cultural heritage continues to be endangered and increasingly at risk. Inexorable changes, modernization, globalization, coupled with a complex amalgam of social, economic, technological, and environmental factors, all threaten the survival of practices, expressions, knowledge, and skills, as well as associated objects and cultural spaces that are now part of living heritage, and now the deep decimation and loss caused by COVID-19. While we cannot yet estimate the fallout of the pandemic, we know that in the last few decades, shifting dynamics have led to an erosion of many practices and traditions. Hence, any path towards safeguarding, development, and sustainability cannot be isolated from this larger context and must simultaneously take into account all these dimensions. So in the brief time available to me, I'm going to talk about the path we have chosen at the Craft Revival Trust, the NGO I work with. When we were set up in 1999, we were well aware of the number of debates around the appropriate path to safeguarding, development, equity, and sustainability in the area of living culture. There were many paths we could travel on, and we at CRT chose a particular focus. That of knowledge as an underlying premise for creating an enabling environment. This torchlight on knowledge as an instrument for constructive change and a catalyst for introducing systematic, significant windows of opportunity for living cultures in an ecosystem of diverse traditions and pursuits, divergent customs, and contemporary relevance was for 5 distinct reasons. First, at the outset, it is well proven that free and open access to information creates an environment that empowers individuals and societies. And I know that you are all aware of it because as I saw the audience walk in, I know it's largely made up of students. And because you are students, you are aware how everything you learn every day in your university, around you, from digital media, from your friends, each bit of information empowers and creates you as a better, a more different, a more mature, a more rounded individual. Second, for any strategy to succeed, an accessible framework of information and data is a necessary prerequisite. Given the scale and potential of this sector, the absence of hard facts and lack of information have been a major reason why this sector has so often been ignored at policy levels and by development experts. Third, is that all the techniques, practices, and skills are abundant, the makers and practitioners themselves often remain isolated, owing to their inability to access information. This thus curtails the ability of practicing communities to respond effectively within the contemporary matrix, in effect, crippling those who suffer from the twin drawbacks of information deprivation and poor outreach. At a time when modernity and progress and development is defined by the access to education, whether digital or otherwise, we felt if this bypasses makers and practitioners, it would create a new form of deprivation and impoverishment for those with no access. Fourth, for revitalizing and safeguarding, documentation is an invaluable reference source, imperative for the development of the sector, for preserving traditions and protecting copyright. For development intervention to be effective, it is necessary to study traditions and develop an understanding of the constraints and parameters within which practitioners operate. As practitioners often do not themselves have access to the textual knowledge of their forefathers, there is a very real danger of techniques, motives, designs, and traditions dying out due to change. Migration, underuse, or even the death of a specialized practitioner. In the absence of any documentation, oral traditions one lost can never be revived. It is a permanent loss. This cannot be overemphasized. Fifth is that despite the progress in communication technologies, there are glaring gaps in awareness, information, and exposure about the practitioners and makers in the public space. Information, even when available, is hard to access, often out of print, and frequently out of reach. This seems even more glaring considering their contribution not only to the economy in terms of employment, but also their immense cultural significance. The challenge that lay ahead for us was in designing frameworks that were sensitive to the sheer complexity of the sector, while simultaneously reflecting its dynamism and pervasive plurality. We needed to move from being victims lamenting the losses of globalization to an informed lobby with the ability to successfully highlight and address issues that affect the sector while simultaneously establishing its contribution. So we started, like many other organizations do, with an identified problem and an attempt to fill the gap. Based on the premise that the most influential educational enterprises of global cultures was the creation of knowledge compendiums and encyclopedias, we considered it of great import to create subject-specific online corpuses offering an Asian perspective. In 1999, we decided to put knowledge first through the building of an information and knowledge infrastructure for the living traditions. And we started with the crafts and cultural practices and oral stories that surround it. To work towards remedying the relative neglect of this ecosystem at a time when, despite the value of living culture being recognized worldwide, innumerable factors continue to endanger their very existence. So we at CRG set out to build an information and knowledge infrastructure that introduce systematic and significant windows of information on the traditional arts, crafts, textiles, and its practitioners in South Asia. With the initial assistance of UNESCO and generous help from the practitioners and transmitters, the wider community, this encyclopedia's work started in the late 1990s. For a project of this conception and size, with an additional aim of democratizing access to knowledge, to reach out to the largest numbers, combined with low budgets, we decided to go straight to the use of digital technology, which, by the way, at that time was considered quite revolutionary, rather bold, and by many imprudent, as it was then a relatively nascent technology in India and indeed the world. We started with the Asia Inch Encyclopedia. The challenge for us lay in designing frameworks that were sensitive to the sheer complexity of these diverse traditions, divergent customs, and continuums that had a contemporary relevance, while simultaneously constructing an infrastructure of significant windows of information. Our first step was to create a baseline foundation by listing of the past and the living continuum of heritage and tradition, pictures and information. At present, with information on 7 South Asian countries, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Pakistan, Bhutan, and 1 Southeast Asian country, Laos, with over 2,500 living and endangered crafts and their practitioners, directories of collections, innovations, and expanding glossary, Asia Inch is now the leading online repository of craft knowledge across South Asia. It continues to be a work in process. Then with India Inch, a directory listing giving direct access to over 70,000 practitioners. And as we all know, tradition and heritage is not an unchanging monolith. Discussions and debates swirl around. New findings, new ways of seeing, further research continue to enrich. This led to our next online resource, Global Inch, the quarterly international journal and archive that is a platform for global connects and knowledge exchange on culture, heritage, diversity, ICH, sustainability, and other aspects. It is a leading repository of writing, debate, opinion, information, and discussion with over 500 essays, 40 categories, a huge bibliography, and over 200 contributors, making ICH accessible for readers to draw on. All 3 continue to be a work in progress. The scope remains broad and inclusive, and they are acknowledged for their gravitas and reach. Translated into 11 languages, it is now one of the largest sources of information of its kind worldwide, providing opportunities for those who form part of the ecosystem of ICH and regarded as a template for others both in the region and globally. Now, on to the future. We are a small organization, albeit with a global reach. But as I speak to you here, we hope to continue to do what we have to do. As little did we know that as you seek knowledge and you disseminate it, it just continues to expand, a completion always out of reach. So, what is it that continues to exercise us? What remains incomplete? And what should we join hands to do? So, I put forward my wish list. My first step would be my recommendation to government to create a baseline foundation of the practitioners and performers, a census cum economic survey on the situation at hand. The process needs to involve all the constituents while rooting the work in a development framework, defining the terminology, clarifying misused definitions, counting the numbers, making available a list of creators and performers are some of the tasks that need to be undertaken. Really, a satellite account for the creative and cultural industries of India, like what the government has already instituted for the tourism industry. The second step would be to remedy the constant complaint that the younger generation is no longer interested in following and learning traditions. This is leading to us in India to losing the knowledge of these great oral traditions, and it needs to be remedied by building a theoretical framework that legitimizes and amalgamates the principles of oral and local knowledge, of the skills and techniques traditionally transmitted orally within the commonly accepted scientific and technological infrastructure. We need to apply scientific rigor to the study of processing of materials and techniques of indigenous making and creativity by uncovering and studying the underlying principles at the heart of these technicalities. This collaboration among scientists, technologists, and bearers of oral knowledge through application of stringent scientific principles could lead to a uniquely Indian knowledge system, giving us a global edge. A third step would be the introduction of the study of living heritage in the curricula of schools and colleges, recognizing that the current lack of awareness is a form of deprivation for every one of us. This need has become even more immediate with the passing by Parliament of the Right to Education Bill and the push to universalize access to education at the secondary level, especially since there is an underlying belief that knowledge gained from textbooks is superior to received oral knowledge. Simultaneously, there has to be a move towards greater equity, a removal of barriers within academia and scientific institutions to accept within their fold the holders of traditional knowledge for a more equitable, even-handed, inclusive education. Moving beyond tokenism to create substantive change. Fourth, we must lead on international legal instruments of intellectual property rights. As a signatory, India must protect the intellectual property of its practitioners in order to safeguard their heritage and livelihoods, rather than see them lost in free trade decisions that all too often mean the shoring up of more powerful countries' patents. We not simply have a duty to our own citizens in this regard, but also to similarly developing countries and to the inheritance of global culture more generally. I am aware that these are paths as yet not traveled. However, if we who are gathered here don't take the first step, who will? We need to continue to push out boundaries and create the freedom to learn, study, educate, preserve, connect, and reach. I conclude with again thanking colleagues and friends at Sangeet Natak Academy for inviting me to be part of their amazing Kaleidoscope Festival, and to all of you for your attention. Thank you.
Q&A.
Sure.
Can we have the house lights on, please? रीटा जी ने हमें जो जो बातें बताई, हमारे देश में जो क्राफ्ट्स हैं, हर तरह के क्राफ्ट्स हैं जो कुछ हम लोग बचा पाए हैं, कुछ लुप्त हो रहे हैं, लेकिन ज़रा सोचिए, इनका एक इंसाइक्लोपीडिया है, आप जब भी चाहें उसको चेक कर सकते हैं, लेकिन ज़्यादातर लोगों को इसके बारे में पता ही नहीं है। जिस चीज़ का पता नहीं उसको कैसे चेक करेंगे? तो क्योंकि अब रीटा जी हमारे साथ हैं, तो क्यों ना हम इनसे, ऋतु जी से हम पूछें, अगर आप में से कोई सवाल करना चाहे तो ज़रूर कर सकता है। आप लोग कुछ पूछना चाहेंगे?
मैडम, आपने पेटेंट और जो इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी है उसके पंजीकरण की बात की, तो अपने देश में आपने काफ़ी हद तक उसको बताया है, फिर भी और देशों के मुकाबले हम कहाँ ठहरते हैं? और दूसरा, बहुत सा उनका निःशुल्क उपयोग होता है, कॉपीराइट वगैरह के संदर्भ में आपने बताया, तो जो किस तरीके से और देशों के मुकाबले हम हैं और हमारी पंजीकरण के इस क्षेत्र में और कैसे आसानी और सुविधा हो सकती है? क्योंकि आज नेट पे हम देखते हैं तो उन बहुत सी चीज़ें ऐसे उपलब्ध हैं कि मैं खुद ये सोचती हूँ देखते हुए कि आखिर ये उनको मिली कहाँ से? तो उस कंटेंट पे या उस पे हम कैसे नियंत्रण कर सकते हैं? क्योंकि जो बहुत हद तक बिखर चुका है, अब उसको वो करना थोड़ा सा मुश्किल लगता है, तो इस बारे में आपसे पूछना चाहूँगी।
आपने बिल्कुल सही बोला, पर मैं आपका जवाब अंग्रेजी में दूंगी।
मैं भी अंग्रेजी में पूछ सकती थी, फिर भी मैंने कहा चलो कोई बात नहीं, थोड़ा दोनों तरह से।
I think the beauty is everyone is so bilingual, and in fact even more languages that we can shift from one to the other quite easily. You're absolutely right. So much has been lost, and if we are not actively active in this area, so much more will be lost. So bilkul, you have said the right thing. However, this is a matter for lawyers and governments, because these are acts that have to be brought in by Parliament, which is why I thought I would bring it up here, because I know that from Sangeet Natak Academy, which is a nodal body for ICOH, the voice will reach the ministry. And I know that they are making moves towards it, because in the WIPO, which is the World Intellectual Property Office, they have a whole section on rights and laws for traditional knowledge and traditional cultural expression, under which a lot of oral traditions come. And most of the countries of the world with old heritage, whether we are talking about Latin America, Africa, Asia, these are countries which, like you said, have lost a lot. Even the West has lost a lot. Japan has lost a lot, because we are all moving so rapidly forward. So these discussions are on, but that is why I was urging here that these discussions should not be put on the back foot, because with digitization, especially in the last 2 years, we have really been thrust into a digital world now. Even till 2 years ago, till COVID-19, we were moving at a certain pace. But I cannot underline the urgency now. It's even greater, because more will be lost, more will be copied, less will be protected. And as I said, the time is now.
I have a question. There are a lot of students here, and for students, what is most important is to follow their curriculum, study, and go towards some sort of a profession where they can earn a lot of money, or at least a livelihood. Traditional handicrafts, our intangible heritage, unfortunately does not fall in that category. So what can be done to ensure that children who don't belong to a particular region can also not only learn but practice that intangible heritage that attracts them?
Well, I don't think anyone stops the young. So I think if they have an interest in anything, they can always Number one, learn it. Number two, when you said that there is not great livelihood to be earned from it, I would actually slightly beg to differ. Because while I speak here, the Lakme Fashion Week is on. And almost all the designers are using textile traditions which come out of rural India, whether it is block printing, whether it's embroidery, applique, you name it. And they draw their inspiration also from the great traditions of textiles that this country has to offer. In the same way, if you go online, you will see how many people are working now with craftspeople, contemporizing their products, working in design with them. However, you are right. Because students are so busy with their curriculum, they actually, and passing their exams and the stress of 10th, 12th, first year, second year, third year, they have very little time to step out of their boundaries. So they will have to carve out the time, number one, or perhaps come back to it later. And I hope when they come back to it, it isn't gone. So it's not that much time. And the other thing I find is all we have to do is look around us. We always think great heritage is in some tiny village somewhere. But when I work in, my office is in Khirki Extension. And it's a semi-urbanized village, right in the heart of Delhi. When I walk down the street, I see the cobbler. He is a craftsman. We have to acknowledge him as such. He's a great artisan. 150 years ago, there was no Bata, there was no Clarks, there was nothing. He made all our footwear. Recognize it. Even now, if he wasn't sitting there, half the time, most of us wouldn't be able to go to work because something or the other had come apart. In the same way, when I'm sitting there, there'll be this guy wala who'll come, who'll tell your fortune. Someone will come wearing lovely, interesting clothes from their own community. So culture is living and breathing. It's all around us. You don't have to go to it. It's right there. You just have to find a new way of seeing it. So just look around and you'll be part of it.
One more question. You know, if culture is evolving, we are using different materials now, modernizing traditional crafts, then is it like the ship of Theseus, that where does the original beauty of the craft lie? Will we lose that completely? And because this will be a new iteration of the same thing?
You know, that's a lovely question. Because that is what living culture is all about. When I open my trunk and I look at what my grandmother wore, and I say, oh, goodness. I mean, how did she ever wear such heavy clothes? So the stitch is there. The fabric has changed, but it suits my lifestyle. When I look around here, I see how many of you are wearing kurtis with pants. That is a living culture. Lots of people have just dropped the orni. No one barely do I see people wearing a dupatta anymore. That is a change in culture, but it is your culture. It is what you do with it yourself. So you cannot be frozen in time. If you want something to live, you have to let it breathe. You have to make it adaptable to your own lifestyle. And that is the beauty of having museums. You can see how it was and how it has evolved. And yes, change is sometimes very frightening. The iteration goes beyond something and you say, what on earth is this? So there are all these aspects of it because it's so vast culture that I cannot make one statement about it.
Coming back to the kind of work you're doing, so if somebody knows a craftsman, for example, a cobbler, is it possible for one of our students, if they see some kind of craftsperson, to upload those images and that information on your platform?
We would love it, because each one of you with your digital cameras and your phones is actually an ambassador for the country. So you can't upload it directly because we have a process, but you can send it to us and we would be delighted. And you have our website details and you can Google us right now on your phone. So It's very possible, very easy. So I look forward to receiving many emails from you all. And again, thank you for your attention.
All your questions answered. Does any student here have a question? कोई भी सवाल हो आप हमारे क्राफ्ट्स के बारे में या वेबसाइट के बारे में पूछना चाहें तो पूछ सकते हैं. Anybody?
Either I have stunned them into silence or
I think you've given them so much to think about, so they have to digest and assimilate all the
they're a
information.
very wonderful audience, I must say. So again, I say thank you.
Thank you very much for this session.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you. So we'll take just a 2-minute break to change our setup for the next part of our presentation.
Program. Namaskar and a warm welcome to this session, Toys.
A very warm welcome to this session in Kaleidoscope. This session is about Toys of India and digital literacy. India has a rich legacy in toy making. Historically, Indian toys date back to 5,000 years. The excavated toys and dolls found in Harappa and Mohenjo-daro include small carts, a dancing woman, and many other little and big toys. India has a rich culture of storytelling through its toys. Our ancestors have been preserving this culture by making toys which show a perspective of life. Religious influences also led to a different set of toys depicting stories from epics like the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Vikaspedia is a multilingual and multi-sectoral collaborative knowledge sharing platform that has been made available as a one-stop developmental portal in most of the Indian languages, 22 languages besides English. This portal is developed as a part of the Indian Development Gateway Initiative of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, and implemented by Center for Development of Advanced Computing, CDAC, in Hyderabad. CDAC was established in 1988 as a scientific society of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. It is primarily an R&D institution involved in the design and development and deployment of electronics and advanced information technology products and solutions, including the celebrated Param series of supercomputers. CDAC Hyderabad is engaged in research in the domains of e-security, e-learning, supply chain management, open source software, VLSI, and embedded systems design. Ms. B. Vijayalakshmi, Associate Director, has over 20 years of experience in various capacities in the ICT for societal development domain. She has been involved in the design and development of Vikaspedia. We present Toys of India and the Digital Library.
Honorable dignitaries and distinguished audience of the program, Namaskar and a warm welcome to this session, Toys of India and Digital Literacy. At the outset, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to deliberate on an important emerging topic in our country today. I also would like to apologize for not being physically present for this deliberation due to some pressing and unavoidable official commitments. Moving on to the presentation, I would like to structure this session as two parts. The first part being a brief oral presentation that is a sort of snapshot of our experiences related to the topic. And the second part would be a multimedia presentation that is being made by my team, which puts together facts related to the topic. Now, the topic Toys of India and Digital Literacy signifies a fusion of two powerful change agents. One are the toys, which represents our history, representing our culture, heritage, and traditions, and the other, digital literacy, which represents our modernity and future. Now, this fusion is gaining traction of late thanks to the clarion call that was given by our Honorable Prime Minister in promoting our indigenous toys under the Vocal for Local campaign. If you look at what we do in CDAC, we aim at leveraging technology for societal development. But when it comes to digital literacy, it is the other way around. We leverage various modes to promote technology at the grassroots. As part of our Vikaspedia initiative, which is one of our national flagship programs, we promote digital literacy among the first level service providers who work closely with the grassroots. And we also take up outreach programs in rural areas to promote government programs. We have resorted to using art, theatre, and culture for creating awareness on digital literacy, digital payments, citizen-centric e-governance services, and other government programs, especially among the rural and vulnerable communities. Considering the factors of poor literacy levels and interest of the rural population in areas such as digital payments, our motivation was to utilize these type of tools to seek attention and to create awareness among the adult population about digital literacy. When it comes to the other stakeholder, namely the children, the task was much easier as digital literacy is getting streamlined as part of the school curriculum these days. Though there might be a rural-urban divide, but still things have already started and it is on a progressive scale. Now, in that context, toys are being looked at pedagogical tools that promote holistic development and create a joyful learning. In summary, what was being done in an informal and unstructured way in using traditional items such as indigenous toys for enhancing learning is now becoming streamlined, structured, and evolved into a formal pedagogical tool in school education. But when it comes to adult population, this exercise is yet to be initiated. So our requirement would be to take it ahead if this momentum has to continue further. Continuous studies and policy directions are vital so as to use the fullest potential of toys in promoting digital literacy among the unreached population, so that this fusion of tradition and modernity would actually lead to societal development. So with this, I would request you to look into our video presentation, which tries to aggregate the facts related to this particular topic as a video presentation, whereby we have tried to capture the field images, the videos, and present it in a logical manner for you to have an understanding of the facts that are currently available on this topic in today's scenario. So once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity and thank you for your patient listening. Thank you.
Welcome to the presentation on Toys of India and Digital Literacy. This presentation is brought to you by a team from Center for Development of Advanced Computing, CDAC. The aim of this presentation is to highlight the prospects and potentials of toys as an enabler in promotion of digital literacy in the country. The presentation is designed to cover the following topics: an introduction to CDAC, setting the context in terms of what does it take to be a digital literate, why should we be a digital literate, and challenges in promotion of digital literacy. CDAC's efforts in promotion of digital literacy. Role of toys in promotion of digital literacy. a few best practices, and roadmap for utility of toys in digital literacy. Let's begin with an introduction to CDEC. Center for Development of Advanced Computing, acronymed as CDEC, is a scientific society under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MeitY, Government of India. CDEC was set up in 1988 with the vision to build supercomputers in the context of denial of import of supercomputers by USA. From supercomputers, CDEC has today emerged as a premier R&D organization working for the design, development and deployment of world-class electronic and IT solutions for economic and human advancement. CDEC centers are spread across 12 cities of the country, with its corporate office located at Pune. The thrust areas of work at CDEC include the following. High-performance computing includes the series of supercomputers, Garuda National Grid Initiative, development of scientific computing applications on these platforms, and cloud computing. Multilingual computing and heritage computing spans the entire range from phones and encoding to speech and language translation for Indian languages, virtual museum builder, digital preservation, etc. Professional electronics covers electronic devices and embedded systems covering areas such as augmented reality, smart card technologies, ubiquitous computing, IoT, etc. Cyber security and cyber forensics. Addresses intrusion detection and prevention, malware analysis, cyber forensics, network security, etc. Health informatics encompasses hospital information systems, electronic medical records, telemedicine, and cancer networks. Software technologies. Scope covered include e-governance solutions, e-learning technologies, geomatics, open source software, accessibility, etc. Education and training aims at creating skilled manpower in the country by providing quality training programs in the field of electronics and ICT. To set the context of the presentation, let's move on to understand what it means to be a digital literate. We live in an age where digital is ubiquitous and seamlessly weaved into our daily life. Knowingly or unknowingly, each one of us are on the roadmap of digital literacy, being positioned at various levels and milestones. Digital literacy is constantly evolving as technology is. However, for clarity in understanding its scope, with respect to the topic of presentation, let's look at a simple and the most accepted definition of digital literacy. Digital literacy is the ability of individuals and communities to understand and use digital technologies for meaningful actions within life situations. Thus, we see three variables of importance in a digital literacy ecosystem. They are digital technologies, skills, application action to realize an outcome. All these variables are truly variable or constantly changing, and therefore, the scope of digital literacy too has been continuously evolving. Starting with a gadget focus, desktop, laptop, mobile, etc., then moving on to activity focus, using internet, making a phone call, etc. Digital literacy has now evolved to a framework of operational skills which is summarized as follows. Functional skills, critical thinking and evaluation, cultural and social understanding, collaboration, ability to find and select information, creativity, effective communication, and e-safety. This takes us to the next question of why do we need to be a digital literate? Here are some key pointers to answer it. A vital need for an inclusive society, the rapid pervasiveness of technology and its applications demands universal digital literacy for our societies to be inclusive. Besides pervasiveness, there has also been democratization of technology. For example, mobile penetration. The teledensity in the country is 85.91%. There are 792.08 million broadband subscribers, which is steadily increasing. Has an impact on socio-economic empowerment. Citizen delivery model is moving towards a faceless, contactless, paperless mode. For example, a unique ID Aadhaar, social security benefits, subsidies, pension, etc. are paid directly to bank accounts of beneficiaries, use of smart card for getting ration in PDS, digital payments, etc. Digital literacy is therefore essential to reap the benefits of the convenience, transparency and efficiency that technology brings. Harness new avenues for learning. Social media, online digital resources, etc. have opened up avenues for seamless connect with geographically distributed people and gain new learning opportunities. Be aware, safe and secure in today's digital world. To evade the threat of digital fraudsters, impersonators, and to maintain privacy or report abuse, we need to be digital literate. Build resilience, confidence, relevance in today's digital society. In uncertain conditions and ecosystems, such as the recent COVID pandemic, digital literacy empowers citizens in building resilience, such as establishing alternate supply chains and markets, telemedicine, skill development, etc., and thus sustain or improve quality of life. Digital literacy, hence, is a 21st century skill that is needed by all. Across all ages, demographics, gender, occupation, income, etc. Considering its importance in development, UN has incorporated digital literacy skills as a thematic indicator under its Sustainable Development Goals. With a conducive digital ecosystem and a proactive policy push, the digital literacy rate in India is yet to reach the desired level. It can be said that it is yet to sync with the pervasiveness of technology in the country. Various studies and statistical reports indicate the digital literacy rate in the country to be around 40%, with a major swing towards urban areas. The COVID pandemic set an alarm bell on how fragile our digital learning ecosystem is. Major challenges in reaching the unreached with this much needed skills include lack or limited access and affordability to ICT infrastructure. Reasons for this include geographical, economical, social, cultural, etc. Limited capacities. Lack of quality content in regional languages, especially for special groups. Social resistance, such as fear, preconceived myths. Thus, we have a twofold mandate of promoting digital literacy in a country like ours, which is diverse and large. One is to reach out to a large audience who are yet to be reached, especially the underprivileged and vulnerable populations. And the second is to provide continued learning opportunities to the digital neo-literates. Innovative and multi-stakeholder participation is therefore a must to reach this Herculean task. CDAC contributes to the digital literacy ecosystem of the country primarily through two areas. First is the design and development of technological tools and applications. As an outcome of CDAC's activities on various thrust areas of IT and several products and services that can act as enablers for promotion of digital literacy in the country have been released, such as tools and applications that promote Indian languages in the digital space, free open source softwares, accessibility products, e-learning, ICT applications in various domains such as agriculture, health, e-governance, energy, etc. Second is the building capacities of service providers on IT skills. Flagship initiatives include Wikispedia and information security education and awareness. Considering the heterogeneity and the scale of the need of promoting digital literacy in our country, one of the innovative and cost-effective tool that is yet to be fully exploited is toys.
साथियों, खिलौनों के क्षेत्र में भारत के पास ट्रेडिशन भी है और टेक्नोलॉजी भी है। भारत के पास कंसेप्ट भी है और कॉम्पिटेंस भी है। हम दुनिया को इको फ्रेंडली टॉयज की ओर वापस लेकर जा सकते हैं। हमारे सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर्स कंप्यूटर गेम्स के जरिए भारत की कहानियों को, भारत की जो मूलभूत मूल्य हैं, उन कथाओं को दुनिया तक पहुंचा सकते हैं।
Just like digital literacy, toys have also evolved a lot. From being an every child's play item, toys have evolved to becoming essential learning aids in terms of its multiple utility, smartness, and versatility. The Indian toy market reached a value of $1.2 billion in 2020 and is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 12.2% during 2021 to 2026. The advantages they bring, especially among children, are time-tested. To list a few: make teaching learning process inclusive, interesting, interactive, and child-friendly. Bridge between formal and informal learning scenarios. Facilitate holistic child development. Cognitive, psychomotor, socio-emotional, communicative, adaptive, etc. and bring in a connect between our culture, heritage and learning. With respect to the promotion of digital literacy, the utility scope of toys is seen as a facilitating and pedagogical tool for children and an awareness generation media for adults. The characteristics of toys that make it an important pedagogical tool are as follows: universal acceptance. Across all cultures, social, economical backgrounds, toys have a universal footprint and acceptance. Powerful influencer of the learning process. Time-tested methodology. Multiple skills imbibed in a stress-free environment. Focus on self-learning than teacher-directed learning, thus promoting active user engagement. Involves and activates multiple senses, thus enabling better retention. Provides scope for adaptive and assisted learning to suit specially challenged. Simulates real-life scenarios with relatively risk-free environment. This is a great advantage for digital literacy promotion among adults. Cost-effective and scope for local materials to be used. Can be tweaked to suit personalized needs. Smart toys have the additional advantage of smart communication with the learner. There are challenges too in getting desired results. To name a few: lack of capacities to choose proper toys as learning aids, especially relevant to an age group and learning outcome. At times, fun overtakes serious learning. Safety in using, especially with smart toys, such as excessive sounds, lights or moving parts, limited power source, screen time, etc. Addiction. Decreased social interaction. Let us have a look at a few best practices that are worth emulating. Art integrated learning. It is framework of experiential learning which provides an equitable learning environment for all learners through their own access points. It can be used as a pedagogical tool at all levels of school education with the objective of developing cognitive, socio-emotional and psychomotor capacities of the learner. Toys provide the visual, three-dimensional and agile medium for learning in the model. Some examples are puppetry, clay models, do-it-yourself toys. A technology-enabled version of the above include animated cartoons. National Council of Educational Research and Training has evolved guidelines for art-integrated learning in school education. Building as a learning aid. An innovative concept for qualitative improvement in education through intervention in school infrastructure. The careful design of the school environment, based on age-appropriate outcomes, becomes a learning aid that promotes curiosity, care and concern, wonder and lifelong learning. Helps revisit concepts by the learners on a self-paced manner. Aids ubiquitous learning in the classroom, the corridor, the verandas, the outdoors, etc. Internet of Toys. a tech-enabled concept that is gaining traction nowadays with the advent and proliferation of smart toys. Smart connected toys interact with learners to enrich the learning experience. Voice-operated toys assist specially challenged children in the learning process. Connected toys contribute to seamless integration of formal and informal learning. Examples include robots, drones, and other mechanical toys. Toys Quality Control Order 2020. An order issued by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade for standardization and quality adherence of toys. The purpose of this quality control order is primarily to ensure safety of children. The order came into effect from 1st January 2021. The order requires all toys and materials designed or intended for use in play by children below 14 years of age to be certified by the Bureau of Indian Standards. Goods manufactured and sold by artisans registered with Development Commissioner, handicrafts, and products registered as geographical indications are exempted. Roadmap for utility of toys in digital literacy. The following are a few suggestions to further give impetus to the utility of toys of India in promotion of digital